Might be a little bit late dealing with kids in school. We do expect this.
Rona, well, let me know when we're ready. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spokane County Planning Commission. Today is Thursday, October the 2nd. It's 9 a.m. The public may participate in person or remotely by utilizing our web link and telephone conference links. *9 to raise hand, *6 to speak. Individuals are limited to 1 3-minute comment period for any item. Please keep your comments specific to the current agenda item. Chat is not supported. We do have 4 people here for a quorum. We expect more people to arrive. Mr. Edwards will be here probably in about 15 minutes. Other than that, let's go ahead, as is the custom of this commission, to introduce ourselves.
Logan Camporiali.
Thank you, Logan.
And I'll just say, last time there was a request for us to identify which district we're from. So if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll start to do that when I introduce myself. So I'm in Commissioner District 2.
Good morning. I'm Clyde Hossie and in District 4, I think, Mary Cooney's. I think so.
Pete Rayner, and I think I'm in Al French's district. I've been switched.
I'm Stephen Pullen. I'm at large, so you can't get me. Okay.
You're always at large.
Yeah, I have a 4-year term. That's what Mary Cooney said. You have to take the 4-year term. Okay. Thanks, Mary. Okay. So, the first order of business, as always, is open forum. This is the part of our meeting where members of the public may comment on any topic that is not NOT on this agenda today. We have quite a few yellow slips to go through today, but they looks like they all deal with UGA. So does anybody want to come and approach the commission on items that are not on this agenda? Now would be the time, or online. You'll keep an eye on the online stuff. Thank you. Did you need to speak?
I've got one.
You need to speak on UGA or something different. It's more general. Well, then, yeah, that's all right. Did you want to address the commission? Please come right ahead. We use a 3-minute time thing here, so.
Actually, perfect, because I gave myself a 2-minute speech, so.
Okay.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of distinction, it is my honor to come before you today. Not
Need your
only,
name.
oh, sorry, my name is Robbie Johnston.
Okay, Robbie, you've got a yellow card here.
Yes.
You want to speak outside of that?
This is my very first time in one of these meetings, sir, so I don't know how it goes.
It's okay. Continue.
Okay.
Happy to have you.
I probably should have waited till the end of this to come up and speak, right?
It can be confusing.
All right. So, but yes, my name is Robbie Johnston. So ladies and gentlemen of distinction, it's my honor to be here before you as the founder of Tipping Point USA, but as a local resident, a Washington State landowner, and as a temporary or permanent voice for the unheard. Growth is good. It brings energy, opportunity, and the chance to build a better future. But growth only works if it pays for itself, creates real jobs for local families, and remains transparent to the people footing the bill. First, growth must pay for itself. So here I have three pillars here. The first pillar. First, growth must pay for itself. Too often developers profit while existing taxpayers pick up the tab for new roads, schools, and fire services. That's backwards. We should require impact fees that reflects the true infrastructure costs. And if promised revenues don't appear within 5 or 10 years, then we should reopen the books and look at it instead of, having the taxpayers foot the bag. The second pillar would be growth. It must create local jobs. Every subdivision or corridor we build should have a ladder for Spokane workers, our electricians, framers, apprentices, and small shop owners, not just another payday for an out-of-town developer. If new rooftops don't also build new paychecks, then it's not real growth. And then the third pillar, the final pillar, is finally growth must be transparent. If it can track, or if I can track an Amazon package in real time, I should be able to track where my tax dollars go. Citizens also deserve this. They need to see the blueprint before it's actually signed into, or before it's finalized rather than afterwards. That means having like like neighborhood hearings instead of just like here where people have to come in and stuff. Some people don't have the means to travel. Or actually you have the Zoom. I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I
We have
said,
Zoom.
first time here. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the bottom line basically is growth without accountability is actually dead. Growth with jobs and transparency is prosperity. That's the Spokane future that I want to get behind, and I believe everybody here would want to get behind. I'm speaking for myself though, but and our team is actually in the process of launching a community podcast live stream to highlight some of these concerns or some of these objectives. And actually, I'd be honored to have any of you guys on, or anybody in the audience here, anybody on live, to also come in, so that way we can get full spectrum ideas, full spectrum solutions, so that way we can move forward as a powerful community.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Would like to address the commission? Now's the time. Not on the agenda. No, not on the agenda. Okay, yeah. Okay, we got you. Did you fill out a yellow card?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Excellent. All right, moving right along. We have some workshops today. Division Street Transit Oriented Development Survey from the STA. Okay, who's going to introduce that? You will, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to do so. We have the consulting firm MIG that's going to walk through some slides for you. This is a project that is a joint effort between City of Spokane, Spokane County, and STA, related notably to Division Street. It continues on some of the Division Street planning that the city's been doing for a number of years now. And it's particularly relevant for us because it touches us, touches the county, the unincorporated county, on our, one of our fast-growing areas in that North Triangle area that you've seen comp plan amendments for the last couple of years. And so with that, MIG is going to be here. They're going to walk through these slides. We're going to give them about 15 minutes to do that because we have a very busy agenda. And so we hope they will go through expeditiously. And with that, I will turn it over to them.
Thank you,
Great.
Mr. Chesney. And this is remote, right?
Yes, it'll be a remote testimony or a remote presentation.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Great. I'm wondering, just given the kind of length of time, and I know that you want to keep this brief, if I could, you have the full presentation that we had sent in your packet a while back. If I could share my presentation, I've reduced the number of slides for that, and that way we can get through it probably more expeditiously if that's possible. If not, I'll just ask folks who are moving it forward to.
We're not sure if you can do that technically, but why don't you go ahead and try to share that and we'll see if it pops up on our screen.
Okay, let's see. Just send a request to see if I can share. If not, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I keep to agenda schedule, and clearly you guys have a lot on your plate. All right. Looks like that's not going to work.
I think
so
we
maybe-
just allowed it. Try again.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Perfect. All right. Can you all see that?
It's still loading up, but it's working on it. Now we can. Thank
All
you.
right, perfect. Well, thank you for the time this morning. My name's Alex Dupuy. I'm with a firm called MIG. We're an architecture, urban design, planning, and engagement firm, and have done a lot of work over the years within the city of Spokane and within the greater Northwest, both for corridor planning, transit-oriented development, but as well as downtown planning and elsewhere. And so it's great to be in front of you today, and appreciate the time to step through where we've been. So just to give you a quick sense of what I'll talk about today, I'll just give you a quick snapshot of our project schedule. We're about 3/4 of the way through now. Give you an update on our technical and community advisory committee meetings that we've been having that have helped provide direction for the transit-oriented development plan. And then we have actually 5 nodes that we've been developing with the community over about the past 9 months or so. I'm going to focus just on the county nodes, though. Within your packet, you do have all of the information for South Couplet, Rowan, and Francis Lyons, which are within the city of Spokane. But just in order of time, I'll skip past those. But happy to answer any questions if you do have them on that. So just as a sense of kind of where we're at and where we've been working on this project since late 2024. Started with a community kickoff and have hosted a variety of community meetings, pop-ups, surveys, kind of other events to be able to gather input for what potentially the division corridor might look like over time with the introduction of bus rapid transit. We know that within the county and with the current comprehensive plan work that you're doing, there's a lot of growth that's occurred recently, and that there's also a lot of growth that's projected over time. So how do you both kind of take advantage of that growth and that activity, but also provide multimodal transit option or transportation options for people that live, work, but also, just kind of work and move through the corridor on a daily basis? Our goal for this process is to be wrapped up early 2026. We're coming through to the final concepts and getting into recommendations, developing multimodal options, looking at financial feasibility of what some of this development might be, ultimately to create a framework for future development code and comprehensive plan updates. And so we know both the county and the city are within this framework now, within that process. So it feels like a good time to be able to do that. So just to give you a sense of kind of where we've been, we have developed a number of themes. Many of these are coming out of both the comprehensive plan process, but also what we've heard from community, really thinking about growth across the district and the corridor, not just focused on high-end areas or areas where we see growth, really thinking about this from an affordability standpoint and making sure that everybody has access to both transit, but as well as affordable housing and other community amenities that support that. We are also looking at mixed-use development, which I know both the city and the county are looking at through their comprehensive plan. That can be formed in a variety of ways, but looking at really holistically in terms of how these stations might come to be. We have been coordinating with WashDOT for the Complete Streets Initiative. They've been coordinating with county, both planning as well as transportation, and then also really kind of thinking about from a stakeholder, a landowner, a developer standpoint, what works within within these areas, what might be bigger pushes, what could happen now versus maybe more of a long-term strategy. And so really starting to think of this as a phased approach. Just for your knowledge, we are looking at 5 nodes. The South Couplet in Spokane, which is near Gonzaga University, the Rowan node, which is near Northgate Mall, Francis Lyons, which is actually several stations, just right south of the county boundary. And then within Spokane County, the Whitworth College area, as well as Northgate. So I'll step through those here if it loads up. So just kind of a visual sense of where we're at and what we're looking at. Generally, the locations that we are looking at is about a quarter mile around the stations. So it's not just at the station itself. It's within that quarter mile around where those future stations might be. We've done some preliminary financial feasibility. Can development happen now? What would it take to actually spur development? Some of the key takeaways of that are that we've seen that townhomes and other types of kind of attached housing product are generally feasible throughout this corridor. And we're already seeing some of that development happen, particularly in the county where there is a lot of single family, but also attached dwellings being constructed. Podium construction, which is essentially your typical mixed-use project process where there might be retail or some type of amenity on the ground floor with housing or office or other uses above. Most likely not feasible in this area, except maybe around the Gonzaga campus location. And that's not probably surprising. That's closer to downtown. Other areas along the corridor, though, that's a bigger push. Commercial vacancies are a challenge within this area, and that includes the county. So when we start to look at certain types of development that might occur within the stations, commercial development actually is very challenging right now. You have a lot of vacancies. There's a lot of space that is not necessarily structured for new types of development. So how does that start to evolve and transition over time? And then one of the other pieces from a financial feasibility and what developers look for is like, how do you get around? What's the walkability? What are the type of facilities that you have from a multimodal standpoint? So those are all things that start to play into, what happens in the area, what types of amenities might be provided. But ultimately, when construction or, development occurs, what are those amenities or those pieces that are needed to move things forward? So a couple of things we've been looking at is really thinking about flexibility in development requirements. What are ways to actually get development moving now, particularly around those station areas? How do we make sure that we allow that type of development now that could occur so that we're not, kind of waiting for 5 or 10 years for certain things to happen? And also from a mixed use standpoint, do we require mixed use? If we do, where does that start to be located? Where are the kind of the highest and best uses throughout these nodes? And as we get into the coming months, we'll start to move through specific recommendations. From a multimodal standpoint, we're really trying to make sure we don't recreate the wheel. We're starting with the existing capital improvements program. We're looking at other projects that have already occurred through, for example, the Division Connects project, and then adding on top of what we've seen based on what development might occur, are there additional interventions that might be needed from a multimodal standpoint? So again, thinking short, medium, and long term for how implementation might occur. And so when we start to think about, target areas, how do we start to catalyze that development? We also are looking at potential partnerships. Are there public-private partnerships? There's education and health within the corridor. Are there different elements that we could start to think about that, there's multiple people involved as opposed to one person responsible? What are nearby amenities that might attract that type of development that helps identify specific locations? And then really looking at that flexibility and development type. We want to ensure that it's walkable, that it's great for future residents and businesses, but making sure that there's some flexibility in how that occurs. All right, so let's step through the two nodes that we've been working on within the county. The first is Whitworth. And we have been coordinating with, we actually have meetings with the university. We've also been coordinating with other landowners within the county. So when you see these sites, know that we are working directly with landowners to understand what their needs are and some of the conditions that they feel, either challenging or, actually helping them develop their products. We've broken this up into various phases. The first one, we've looked at both vacant and redevelopable sites. So vacant are generally those yellow kind of colors on the map. The purple are potential redevelopment sites, and that's really where development and land values are equal or land values actually higher than development, to consider what might be, kind of possible areas where redevelopment might occur. And so again, these are just concepts. This isn't proposed development per se. But these are ways that we've started to think about how to maximize what's happening with transit, but also looking at, what are those community amenities, those community needs? How do you support the additional residential and employment needs that are being seen through comprehensive plans and what you have to plan for, but also consistency with what that future development code might look like. So as we start to get into some of these graphics, and we've started to look at how some of these vacant or potentially redevelopable areas might develop over time and with what uses. So those yellow buildings are essentially apartments, garden style or multifamily. We've started to look at, areas where potentially mixed use might occur. Those are more the purple buildings. And in some of these locations, we've been looking at, could you actually create parallel street systems? Division's not great to walk on. So if you are trying to create walkable districts, is that on Division itself? Certainly the Division needs improvement, but are there other spaces that you might do that? And so as we start to think about different types of development from a multimodal standpoint, from housing, from employment, how do you start to improve street cross sections, crossings along Division, starting to incorporate what existing projects are to start to create more of a network that supports the development and accessibility. And so this is starting to show different layers of improvements. The blue are potential bike lanes, and we're actually, showing what the Complete Streets project with WashDOT is proposing kind of north of Hawthorne. So starting to incorporate that, but looking at what's already there and how you build upon it. And so as we get into, kind of future development, we start to look at those green areas, which are areas that maybe are developed now, but over the course of the next 10, 20 years, could those sites be consolidated? Could we start to think about development a bit differently? And we know the county is growing quickly. And so how you start to consider that growth, what that looks like, how that supports families, how that supports, young professionals, people just getting out of school. How do you start to kind of build those nodes that really kind of create those places that people desire? So this is starting to add in more development. Again, the yellow is residential, blue is more commercial uses, kind of given the proximity to Division Street, and then, ultimately, eventually adding those purple mixed use buildings. As we do that, we start to build out the multimodal network, and whether that's privately developed, whether that's a partnership, that would still be determined. But again, it starts to look at some of those areas that are, in need of better connections and connectivity. So that's Whitworth. Jumping to Northgate. Northgate's interesting in that it doesn't actually have a bus rapid transit station today. There is a future potential park and ride at the intersection with Newport. But what that looks like today is slightly different than some of the other areas. We also know that there has been a significant amount of already planned development. So we've tried to take that into account. We've also been coordinating closely with Multicare to understand what their plans are in the future for some of their medical. And so again, these are concepts for how we start to build out these areas. This location in particular is in need of more connectivity, not just for vehicles, but for others getting around. And then ultimately, how do you connect to transit? So again, this area we're showing mostly vacant sites, starting to show potentially where you could infill with garden apartments, townhomes, small, maybe detached units. We're seeing that cluster style residential development starting to occur within the state. But that blue area is primarily multi-care. So what we've heard is that, there's lots of medical, what that starts to look like, whether that's a hospital or outpatient or, medical office. There is a lot of space there. And so how that occurs over time is up to that developer, but we wanted to be able to show that in terms of capacity and how we might start to think about that road network and those connections to other uses. So when we get to those pieces, those start to get into those multimodal recommendations. So how do you connect either on or off those major networks? How do you start to connect neighborhoods to services? How do you start to connect that to future transit? So as development occurs over time, some of that infill might happen today. We recognize that these are large spaces. Development could happen over time. So when we start to think about more phased development, starting to add in a little bit more density and scale with more garden style apartments or maybe small scale mixed use, maybe on corners. But again, starting to build in that connectivity to support that development. So just in terms of next steps, we are in phase 3, developing kind of what these start to look like. We're developing 3-dimensional models of these areas, starting to look at potential land use and urban design recommendations as it moves forward. We are currently in a series of meetings with with County Planning Commission, that's why we're here today, but also meeting with city. Both city and county will be doing additional community engagement through September and October. And then we do have a public open house scheduled in October on the 22nd, which would be great if we would see you all there to provide input and just talk to us about the project. But really, that is our last phase of engagement before we get into the draft plan. We'll have one more round of technical and community advisory meetings, most likely January, February of 2026 as we get into the draft plan, and then ultimately finishing the process, Q2, so spring, early summer of 2026 after we've heard all the input and are able to incorporate that. So that should hopefully align pretty well with comprehensive plan work. And again, we've been coordinating closely with Scott and Joshua from the county, as well as Jamie on the transportation side, to make sure we're as aligned as possible as you move forward. So with that, I just want to thank you. I know that was quick, but happy to take any questions or talk about next steps.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Commissioner?
Comments?
I just had one question. Last time we were talking about this, they were still trying to select the nodes. And I think a lot of our discussion was about the Y and versus Whitworth and which one made more sense. And I was just hoping maybe you could give us a sort of 40,000 foot level why we ended up with Whitworth versus the Y.
Yeah, so when we first started this project, we started with the Division Connects process, which identified the Y and Whitworth and a bunch of others. The focus of this was to not assume that the types of recommendations within these 5 nodes would only occur within those nodes, but that they could be applied to other locations. And so one of the reasons why we selected Whitworth over the Y was that Whitworth, we felt, had a bit more opportunity in terms of development, which with what some of the college plans might be. The street network is a little easier to deal with. The Y with, 2 highways basically coming in, auto dealerships and other uses that traditionally are very hard to transition into other elements or other types of development. That could occur over time, but that's probably a little bit larger of a lift. So that's why we picked Whitworth. Northgate was also a question too. There's planned development there. So why select Whitworth? And we felt that that was one that still had a little bit of play in it in terms of that residential, but really focusing on that multimodal element to round out the transit and bike ped alignments was also one reason why we picked that one.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
And Logan, I can add to that briefly. What Alex is talking about in these redevelopment recommendations is very, very consistent with what we're proposing in terms of the mixed use or the neighborhood commercial development zone and develop standards that would go to those areas. He hit it exactly though. The Y site was seen as being so automobile oriented that it would be very, very difficult to turn that into a walkable pedestrian zone, whereas Whitworth is kind of built by definition, and the Meadworks Northgate site is something we can plan in advance. So we're very comfortable that their recommendations are consistent with what we're talking about later today.
Thank you.
Any questions? Lonnie, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad I told everybody you were coming.
Okay. My
Okay.
apologies. My wife, she was on a girls' trip and I had to get my boys to school.
Life happens. Well done. Anybody online?
Somebody that I did
Any hands up, I guess.
on, she had her hand raised, but
Does she need to speak? Well, maybe it was answered. Okay. All right. That should conclude that workshop, I would assume. No one else? All right.
Great.
Next order.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you. very
Thanks,
much.
Alex.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
And on time, I might add.
I did my
Close.
best.
Yeah, good. Environmental impact statement, growth alternative discussions.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is another beginning step, but it's the middle of a long journey. We've started this in 2021 when we were all getting notice of where we needed to be for the 2026 plan update. We have been looking at our growth areas since then. We have started more formally with our cities and towns through countywide planning policies that you had a chance to edit and work on. And then most recently, last time we talked to you about the first of the bookends on the EIS process. And we've called them bookends because they're designed to be, I don't say extreme, but they're designed to be edges of development alternatives that as long as we ultimately, or the board ultimately picks a preferred alternative somewhere in the middle of those bookends, we are able to go forward and keep ourselves on time. If we were to go outside of either side of that, we have to kind of take it back and do further study. So we're trying to set these in a way that gives you and the Board of County Commissioners a good range of options for how you want to plan for development. But that is the goal of what we're doing now is translating some of our ideas into land use, into how we're going to be growing. The Growth Management Act constrains what we do. It is, by definition, it is a market constraint. It's designed to encourage compact urban development. And the city of Spokane is a good example of that. They're working on a significant infill strategy to achieve those things. It's much harder for counties to achieve those kinds of growth because by nature, we're growing on the edges of those cities. Our development tends to be more suburban or exurban in character, not urban multifamily or multi-story development. And yet we exist within that RCW and within those WACs to try to pull this together. Our challenge today and for the rest of this month is to help define what these growth parameters, alternatives are going to look like that meet the standards and expectations of Spokane County existing residents and encourage new investment and new residents to come here. Your role as representatives of the public is to help us understand where you believe those growth directions should go. And then we will, like I said, we did the infill side of this on September 11th. We're going to talk about kind of the other end of that today. And then we hope that you have lots of comments and perhaps questions. We know we've got questions and comments from our citizens. We've received a number of the, over the last couple of days, and we'll be able to entertain all of that as we go forward. So let me go through a series of slides for you, and we'll hit this. Quick reminder, this is the approach that the EIS uses, a no action alternative. The alternative 1, which we talked about September 11th, and alternative 2 is where we are today. This is kind of the fundamental basis of where we are, because we're talking today, and the bookends are mostly about residential growth. Non-residential, industrial, commercial growth is something of a parallel track as we move forward. But you can see in that lower left corner, those are the housing units allocated to the unincorporated county for the period up to 2046. 17,000 in our urban growth areas and almost 6,200 expected in our rural areas. Unlike the cities, we have to account for rural development. Yesterday, for example, in our virtual open house, we talked about rural development specifically and trying to maintain rural character, trying to keep our rural communities vibrant. And as you can see, there's healthy growth that is expected outside of our traditional urban areas. The challenge we have, and I'm sorry, the screen's a little bit out of alignment there, but is, as you've heard before, counties and cities have to plan for housing by accommodating these specific income bands. And those income bands are based on the area median income and then some share of that. In the past, comprehensive planning simply said, provide the opportunity for affordable housing. Well, now the GMA has made that much more specific and say you have to account for 0 to 30 and others. Sorry, got ahead of ourselves here. 0 to 30 and others. Nope. And sorry, a little technical glitch. There we go. And so you can see in that urban area, in that 0 to 30, there's about 6,000 units that have to be accommodated in the unincorporated county. This is a challenge because in most places, the unincorporated county, Alex's presentation notwithstanding, does not have access to transit, is not near social or community services. Often people have to have automobiles to move around. And so there's a particularly big challenge for counties to meet these standards as opposed to more urban cities. And this was up there a minute ago. This is a recent case. The city of Mercer Island completed their comprehensive plan update a year ago, and it was appealed to the Growth Management Hearings Board because of apparent insufficiency in that income band housing. The hearings board, in fact, upheld the appeal and said you did not account for it because they banded everything into the 120% of AMI, or area median income, and under. They did not fully expand those income bands as they were directed by GMA. And it was also, in a sense of clustering it in the town center. The hearings board found that it was not adequately planned through what was called the sub-area process. And so what we're looking at, and this is, and you can see here also, there was not sufficient feasibility to show that you could seriously achieve these planned objectives. And what that is simply is they didn't show that there was any money available or any financing to actually make this happen. It was simply a policy decision with the expectation that over the next 5 years, some of that implementation would be worked out. And the hearings board said that was insufficient. You must have the ability to implement this at the time you complete your plan. That is a very significant twist from what all of us have been operating under from Commerce in the past, which was we have to complete the policy work to make sure we don't restrict or prohibit affordable housing, and we have to lay these bans out there in reasonable things, but it was left to the market to implement them. What the hearings board said is, no, you have to have a financing plan in place, whether that's outright subsidies, whether that's land trusts or something. It added a twist to this that puts that responsibility on the local government. We expect this case, it's under appeal. We don't know where that's going, but it's providing us with a much more rigorous task on how we're going to accomplish these things. So, a couple of reminders. What we're doing in Alternative 2, different from Alternative 1, is we're exploring in more detail placemaking and that neighborhood idea. And you've seen most of these principles before. They talk about mixes of density. They talk about blended construction, mixes of uses, very different than our current system of LDR, MDR, HDR, commercial, light industrial, so on. This is a system that deliberately blends in uses that have comparable or complementary intensities. So it's not putting a steel factory next to single family housing, but it is putting perhaps a machine shop or something that is more quiet and doesn't have big deliveries where people can walk to work and services and amenities. So development standards, getting into a little more detail, we're looking at keeping our basic development densities starting at 4, and these are effective densities, not necessarily the statutory densities in those areas. So design standards, multi-story buildings, 4 stories in neighborhood centers, some fairly radical approaches, eliminating minimum lot sizes. If there is a current single factor toward prohibiting affordable housing, it starts with the price of land. And if you have to have minimum lot sizes of 4,000 square feet or thereabouts, you're building in a starting cost of that project that is untenable. And those of you in the development business or related probably see that every day. And so one option on a regulatory side is, what if we eliminate lot sizes and let the market decide how they could do some work like that? Another, on that last one, typically a private lot must have legal access, and that means access to a public road, alley, public street, something like that. We're also going to look at what happens if we don't have to have that. If you can have a common piece of property with individually owned small lots within that don't individually touch a public road. In the city, we did this 12 years ago in a cottage housing project. So it's again, it's not revolutionary. It just hasn't been used in current zoning. This is that rough, again, the illustrative example of what that blended neighborhood can look like. It's got single family homes, it has townhomes, garden walk-ups, some multifamily, connectivity of the grid, trails connections to parks. And so this may not be possible on every site. I mean, obviously you can look at that group and think, that's 10 acres or more. But it gives us a benchmark to say, this is the policy that we're striving for in our growth areas where we've got a bigger piece of land to work on. So where we get into those standards, LDR would essentially stay roughly where it is to reflect our historic development patterns. Our look over the last 10 years came to the conclusion that we had the Spokane County and the unincorporated UGAs has developed at roughly 4.5 units an acre consistently across that 10-year span. So that's our historic benchmark. And then moving up into larger parcels in increasing densities in that blended approach. And then the last one, again, trying to create that use mix so that we are building walkable communities, which is something of a cliche, but it has meaning. But also that if we've got sufficient land or groups of parcels, we can start to add in amenities that were traditionally left off, small markets notably, whether it's a convenience store or something like that, so that these places that are building on the edge have some place to go for daily needs that doesn't have to be a bigger grocery store that's 2 or 3 or 4 miles away. Yes, sir.
Are you talking about land outside the UGA, or does this also apply to open parcels inside the UGA?
We will get to that,
Okay.
but the quick answer is we're looking at a sort of a 10-acre minimum right now. There are not a lot of 10-acre or bigger parcels within the current
Right.
UGA. However, for those parcels that were in that 10-acre range, we would be considering changing that zoning into this neighborhood zoning within the UGA as well as outside of it. And we'll talk later about the size, the size of a parcel and what's feasible, and we look to you to provide some guidance on that. Rhonda? Okay. There we go. I'm going to run through these. There's a number of them, and there's a lot of detail here. The packet is in your packet. These slides are in your packet. They're also posted online so people can look back and forth at them. But these relate to alternative 2. We had a different set of these standards for alternative 1, which is more that infill. So what we're saying here, and this is kind of back to Pete's question, in existing LDR smaller sites in the UGA, we're not going to make any changes in standards. We're going to keep to our historical development patterns. In the infill, this was bumped up to 10 and 12 units an acre. In MDR, we're going to be adding, or we're recommending in that MDR zone, the ability of duplexes, triplexes, quads, as well as attached multifamily, increasing the maximum density up to 30 units an acre, which gets you, as you can see here, sort of an effective density around 16. And then lot sizes and conditions. High density is one thing would be eliminating the conditional use permit requirement for something over 30 dwelling units an acre, not having single family subdivisions be produced in a multifamily zone, in a high density zone, increasing height limits. All of these are designed to provide both flexibility and more capacity in those zones. This is the first new zone, neighborhood residential. This would ideally replace single family or LDR, MDR, HDR in those areas that have sufficient land capacity to build this. So we based this sort of on the MDR standards, on the existing standards. But you can see, attached family, multifamily, upper floor residential. Alex mentioned podium building development. And while it doesn't seem feasible in our northern areas compared to the university district, if you think of some of the redevelopment plans that they were drawn out there, that multifamily podium structure, in other words, residential over commercial, could fit very well in the Whitworth area as that becomes more dense. It could be compatible in the Meadworks area where multi-care, Shriners Hospital, DOT is interested in using their land for a more aggressive redevelopment proposal. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that could happen in the unincorporated county in the areas that have sufficient economic energy to do that. Continuing on here again, eliminating lot sizes, eliminating coverage ratios, FARs, taking off parking requirements, all of which do several things. If you don't have to provide parking for 50 cars, that's a very significant chunk of land that could go into either construction of dwelling units or amenities. But the point is, it's also leaving it to the market to some degree to say, what is the customer you're building for? Do you have to include parking underneath your structure, for example, and take the ground level and do that, put residential above? So it provides a way to balance the investment, which ideally could make project slightly more affordable if you can put twice as many units on a site as opposed to half the site being set aside for a parking field. So in commercial, this is kind of the flip-flop of neighborhood residential, neighborhood commercial. Neighborhood residential is essentially a residential neighborhood that allows mixed uses that serve that neighborhood, services, amenities, things. Neighborhood commercial is essentially a business district that allows residential and is integrated in that, so that in this case, it could be more that walk to work. It could be more intense business uses with multifamily residential within a short distance. Community commercial is a zone that we have now, and we're going to recommend simply eliminating it because it starts to become, there's a fine grain between neighborhood commercial, community commercial, regional commercial. It's like we need to make those more flexible and not have more distinctions. So we're just going to eliminate that. And then regional commercial is going to be kind of restated in a bit, really for much more larger scale developments. We don't anticipate building another regional mall, but this would be kind of the zone that would go in. And even here, you would still allow residential uses. But this is a more traditional business use category that would be around a mall or a business center of some kind, of a corporate campus, for example. Mixed uses, same kind of thing. And as we go through here, and as you talk about these and provide guidance, and as the commissioners and the public, these neighborhood commercial zones may in fact collapse even further, so that if we're promoting mixed use in most of them, do we need a separate mixed use zone on top of it? Right now, we're leaving it out here for study purposes. And you see many of the same things, eliminating the FARs, height limits, parking changes, all of which are designed to allow for development density increases. So these are kind of the math standards that we'll be looking at to estimate capacities and intensities of development. That 4.46 or 4.5 units an acre for LDR, and then the increases on those densities, and then breaking out how much of the site we're anticipating would be residential versus non-residential. And for the moment, we're using sort of the classic definitions of persons per household, 2.5 for a detached house, 1.5 for most other things. Those are, they're probably out of date. A lot of conversations we hear from home builders and others are suggesting that 2.5 is probably now 2.1, and 1.5 might be 1.2. Smaller households that are coming out as opposed to that. This provides us kind of an accepted definition to go forward. So with all of that in mind, what happens when we want to adjust our urban growth area boundary to accommodate the growth patterns that we've just talked about? Under our WACs, which is the administrative code, or the rules that implement the statutes, this is what is said here, that you should encourage use of the existing lands through density increases to the degree that you are able to and that meets your local market. If it's infeasible, you should consider expanding the urban growth area. What you'll notice in here is there's no prohibition against lower density development. It's an encouragement to think wisely about what we're doing. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because it comes into things like capital facilities. And then the second part of this, the idea is to accommodate growth for that 20-year period. And what that 20-year period is reflective of is, what is the local market? How should Spokane County develop? Is Spokane County's development pattern different from Pierce County? Is it different from King County? Is it different from Kootenai County, where a whole different set of rules apply? If we are to defend this under the Growth Management Act, we need to know what that market is and be able to say, this is what Spokane County wants to and needs to develop, and this is what we can afford to develop. Again, back to the capital facilities side of it, which is, you know, streets, sewers, water, and so on. And then these are the criteria for the UGA itself. This is a statutory criteria. You've seen these before. Most of them are pretty straightforward. You know, so as we evaluate parcels, all of these come right off the top. You have to meet all of these before you start moving forward. Any thoughts before we move on? We hit a lot here. These are our local criteria that are the next round of benchmarks. And I want to be clear with you, our audience, those at home. What we're going to be showing in a few minutes is kind of a first evaluation of parcels on our edge that meet those WAC criteria and meet these criteria. It is only a first cut. Things can change based on your direction. You know, for example, item number 3, we started this at a 10-acre minimum parcel. So if a parcel was in the urban growth area that was, you know, 5.5 acres, it wouldn't meet that criteria. It might meet the other criteria. You may want us to say, you know, maybe 5 acres is a better benchmark to look at than 10 acres. That's the conversation we'll have here in the next, as the morning goes on, but also as the month goes on. And again, these are not limits. They are the first round of benchmarks. Oh, and I should go back. On that left side column, there were 92 individual landowners or agents who sent us letters of interest saying they were ready to go in development. By law, counties are not able, we don't announce applications for urban growth areas. There's not a process where you can apply to do that or do that. So we asked for letters of interest because it gives us, you know, number 7. All other things being the same, we don't want to put or recommend something into an urban growth area that is not ready to go. The whole point of this is to have places where the market can invest now, not to put something in there that we know won't develop for 10 years or more. So we're going to go through these study areas. This map is online. It's under on our web under the Urban Growth Area tab. It is interactive. The slides are not. It is interactive so that if you click on any individual parcel, it'll show you which of the criteria it meets. It'll show you any other characteristics on there. Generally, you can see on the criteria content on top, the darker the color, the more criteria, the more of those elements that every individual parcel meets. And so this is, again, the starting point. And for reference, this is kind of where we were talking about with MIG. Newport Highway comes up on the right side, 395 or the division extended over on the left side. The North Metro UGA pops up through the middle there. And this is also the kind of that North Mead area that developed outside of urban growth areas in the 80s and 90s. But you can see a number of parcels meet criteria. They're on highways, they've got access or proximity to sewer and water. And so there are choices to be made for growth on this north side. On the western side of that, up on 9 Mile Indian Trail Road, the parcels that are outside of the city, outside of the urban growth area, some of them score particularly well. They're also big parcels, which provide an opportunity for that blended development that smaller parcels do not. And you can see also on the right side of the slide, the kind of the lower right, that's 5 Mile Prairie, all of which is in urban reserve. And there are a number of parcels in there that are good candidates for development as well. And you can see there two, for example, and I know our laser doesn't really work up here, but those 2 bright green ones, as an example, those by themselves do not meet any criteria for urban growth expansion. However, to their immediate west are two plats that came in through the settlement agreement that were deemed expired by my predecessor, before I was here, but were brought back to the hearing examiner, and the hearing examiner found that they had in fact vested and had been fully entitled. So those will be in the urban growth area, which means those two green parcels are now touching an urban growth area. So they gained in eligibility. And again, today there's no value judgment on which parcels we like. It's just pure findings on how many of the basic criteria do each of these parcels meet. If we look at the valley north, everywhere from Argonne Road over there on the west side, or on the left of the slide, to nearly Liberty Lake, and the parcels immediately above the river, south of Otis Orchards. What is notable, and sorry, I didn't mention it before, the bright green slides or parcels here are parcels that meet all of the criteria that were established. So would be the better, I'd say better, they at this point, they meet the criteria that are defensible under the Growth Management Act. South side, fewer parcels, more scattered. Of course, you get into the natural areas, the topography, things are a little bit more difficult there, but there are still pieces. As many know, even if you've got a 2-acre or a 5-acre or 7-acre parcel, you can do a fairly substantial, a number of units to put on there for a time. Moving a little bit to the west, south and east of the city of Spokane, the Moran Prairie, Glen Rose area. Again, a number of the parcels in those darker colors meet several of the criteria and could be considered, especially as you go into that next round of, and I say the next round in the sense that if we look through those development standards and find that we really do want to pursue more raw acreage, this is the scoring matrix that we would at least start with. West Plains, not surprisingly here, again, those darker colors along the existing UGA south of I-90, and then the more commercial industrial parcels off of 902 and I-90 as well. And one of the things that we'll want to talk about, particularly out here, is, and I glossed over it, I shouldn't have, in one of those development standards, the EIS is the environmental impact statement. And so while we're looking at kind of raw land here, what we're doing behind the scenes is updating our critical areas ordinance, and particularly on the West Plains, the things we have learned about water, aquifers, paleo channels, contaminants, wetlands, and other things, all of that will factor into the suitability of lands for development. It will not be a recommendation on these lands are good and now you have to mitigate stormwater. It'll be these lands are seriously impacted by lack of percolation and should not be built to this intensity. So that environmental factor comes into all of this. But I brought it up here because I have learned so much about the West Plains in the last few months. It's important. And then some of our smaller areas, Airway Heights is desirous of using land on their west side, kind of in a sense swapping lands from what is now the county's off-road vehicle park. The ORV is in an urban growth area. Makes no sense. It's never going to develop in residential. It's not going to develop in anything other than a park, at least in our lifetime or generations. And so Airway Heights is asking to simply, in a sense, move that to accommodate their residential growth in an area that suits that. Fairchild Air Force Base has essentially signed off on this approach. And so they've come to an understanding that this will not negatively impact the mission of Fairchild now or the future. Medical Lake, you can see the outlined parcel to its east. The Medical Lake UGA on the north side and the one on the far southwest corner will be de-designated for the most part. And we're recommending that they establish a new urban growth area on their east side where they're better suited to develop. They have better access to sewer. And we're going to be working with them in a partnership of some kind to be determined on seeing if we can provide a water service system for at least the western shore of Silver Lake. And that's, their observation is the terrible fires from 23 out there were partially because there was no commercial water service. There was no fire service. There were no hydrants. There were no pipes. And the roads were one way in, one way out. So we want to help them on a environmental and a safety aspect. And then if they're subsequently add that urban growth area, that gives them a chance to grow both in their city and on their edge in a very logical place on a road back to the interstate and connectivity. Cheney, again, a little different. There's not much land that meets more than one or two of the criteria. That said, though, Cheney in their land capacity analysis has said that they can accommodate their full 20 years of growth within their urban borders. So at the moment, there's no pressure to move outside of that. You can see the gray area on their eastern side, on the other side of the railroad tracks. That was or is their currently designated urban growth area. Most of that is compromised by critical areas of one kind or another. So that'll be de-designated because it really can never grow into an urban growth area or into urban growth.
Scott, could I ask a question?
Yes.
Why was it included in the first place? Like that, I know this area pretty well. It seems like a strange place to include it. It's also on the other side of the railroad tracks, which is difficult. There has been one development over there. So there's been some, it maybe worked a tiny bit, but why was this included?
I'm afraid we'd need the DeLorean to go back in time to really understand that. Our guess is the urban growth areas that were attached to the smaller towns, because an urban growth area was a brand new thing, and at the birth of GMA, nobody really knew what it was other than we should plan for some future growth. And so we or our predecessors drew boundaries around these small towns and said, we'll figure it out later.
Fair enough.
Is my guess. Deer Park is an interesting case. They recognize back to capital facilities, the incredibly expensive nature of trying to develop urban densities on the west side of the highway. So that part of the UGA goes away. They have some potential growth targets on their north side where there exists some UGA now, and they have acquired some water rights on some ag parcels that they want to bring into their municipal system. We're still working through the details of that, but on parcels where they've acquired a water right and want to use it for urban services, there's one argument that parcel should be in an urban growth area to facilitate that. We're not entirely sure whether that's a restriction or not, but we're considering it at this point. And the other part, Deer Park, looking forward, of course, it is, as the North Spokane corridor is completed, it's going to provide far better access to our northern suburbs, the North Mead area and Deer Park. It's going to be much, much easier to get back and forth from that, which we expect will cause something of a growth boom for those that want more small town or rural living, but still want access to the metro core. So all of that reflects our first cut at where these parcels are. You saw an awful lot of yellow on those. Those were just simply parcels that were in the rural areas that came through the machine being clicked as 10 acres or more. So there's some more refined mapping we will do in the future. But this was that first cut at looking at parcels in the urban reserve, reflecting those that show an interest in development, and giving you that first blush of what's available if in fact we're going to adjust our boundaries. And with that, I would entertain questions, comments, thoughts from any of you, and you're welcome to open this for public comment anytime, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chesney. We will open it for public comment. Members of the commission, do you have some preliminary observations at this point?
Kind of like the idea of dropping it down from 10 acres to 5. A couple of things.
Okay, is your mic on? Yeah.
My apologies. I kind of like the idea of dropping it down from 10 acres down to 5 acres for more developmental things for our county.
Go ahead, Pete.
Are you going to explain to us how we translate making housing available to all of our residents in all their different economic classes with what we're doing. I'm at a complete loss as to how we look at that and I mean, the stuff I'm reading has got us at 75% of our population can't afford a median house, and it drops down from there. And so how do we satisfy that requirement? And maybe we'll do, maybe you got plans, I'm sure you do, for us to cover that later, but
I wish I could confirm your confidence in us to provide that information. We're struggling.
May I back up, Pete, on something on that?
Sure.
Really sorry, Scott, but to be able to do that, we got to be able to break up our properties a little bit more to be able to drop the prices on some of our homes and house buildings. So that goes back to the state level of our 10-acre minimum on things. When we've got other people out here that are trying to break up properties, look at different investments in the future, if we can break up our properties a little bit more and not be so restricted by the state, we can get our pricing down. Because that'll ultimately bring down pricing on properties when we can break it
agree.
up.
We don't have direct guidance on that question right now. We, Spokane County, are working with Department of Commerce to try to better understand the Mercer Island case. What does that mean, and how are we going to use that now directive to plan for these income bands? We weren't thinking about it in those implementation terms in the first go around because it wasn't required by the GMA. Now that we're going to have to, you're right, we're going to have to figure that out, and I don't have an answer.
Scott, how did staff come up with these 7 criteria?
Sorry?
How did staff generate these 7 criteria?
Based generally on kind of an adaptation of the WAC criteria, but mostly on things like capital facilities, proximity to the existing UGA, and that's the urban reserve capacity part of this. And then the other elements will figure into various concurrencies like transportation concurrency. So it was based as much on practical level of implementation as anything else. And as you know, as Lonnie said, if we shrink that eligible size to 5 acres, we will add a number of eligible parcels. Then you have to balance that with capital facilities. Can you extend sewer, water, roads to a smaller parcel affordably, or do you get a bigger bang for your buck if you can do that same size pipe for a 10-acre parcel? So we'll have to balance all of that out. And we're open to other thoughts on criteria. We use these as a benchmark to get started. And that's what we've given to our EIS consultants as their first go around to take a look.
Obviously, we have a letter in front of us that says that we didn't apply the criteria properly, or maybe that's why you're suggesting this is just a first run, or maybe this is just inaccurate. Is the map that we currently have in our document center, is that final, or that's just a first pass?
No,
we need to run through this again before we have a really clear list of parcels. Can you give me a little more clarity on that?
yes.
And maybe that'll save us some public comment too.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, and I appreciate the reminder. The initial map is parcel by parcel. And so one of the first criteria that we ran up against is if someone owned multiple parcels, but only one of those touched the UGA or touched the criteria, that one met and the others did not. We've done a first cut to say if there's multiple landowners, we're treating them as a single parcel. If one of them meets the criteria, the whole parcel does meet the criteria. That may not be fully reflected in the colors on the map as of yet. The other refinement is some of these parcels are not on the edge of sewer service, but sewer service is within a subdivision that is next door. And so there's a level of detail, you know, in this case, it was, can we find a sewer stub within 30 meters of this property? Yes or no?
And
Well,
you use GIS to do that, basically?
yeah. And if we look at it and, you know, if a piece of property comes in and starts to meet other criteria, we'll look at that subdivision next door and go, well, they didn't stub this out to the edge, but it's in the street that is 2 blocks away. And therefore there is some accessibility. So there's a granularity that this is a 50,000 foot level. So combinations of parcels, combinations of ownership, a better refinement on the proximity of utilities will be the first things we'll go back and look toward.
That's helpful for me. Thank you.
How does the holder of the right to provide utilities willingness to extend to what we plan to produce come into play in our decision? Because, I mean, before GMA, the city had massive water service area. They still got the same water service area or similar,
Mhm.
but they're not extending. How do we in the county provide services that are allocated to somebody else that's reluctant?
I echo that question too, because like when we do in our comp plan amendments, we always like try to reach out to those service providers. So I assume we're going to kind of run through a similar process
Yes.
with these plats and kind of reach out to those service providers and
Yeah.
get that sort of feedback from them. I've been wondering that same thing, Pete.
Nope, that's exactly true. And it's a kind of a two-part question. Utilities, service providers generally want more customers. So if they have the ability to serve, the answer is yes, we can serve this. And here's what it will cost. We have to run this size pipe, this many feet to provide that service. If though, part of our due diligence, and that's also why we're at least administratively updating the coordinated water system plan, so we have a better sense of who has paper water, who has wet water, who's got these rights. If we see a water district that is struggling to provide domestic water, but these parcels are in that service area provider, they may get passed over because we don't have the confidence that they could be fully provided with water or sewer. So the providers will be deeply involved in this. We made some changes to our concurrency arguments a few years ago when we updated the CFP, for example, to give schools a more direct role. So if a school district says we can't serve realistically, and as this population grows in the next 20 years, we don't have the capacity to build another school out here, that will have a determining factor on whether we would recommend development in that area. So all of those providers will have a seat at the table.
Wisdom of Solomon is necessary. They said, we need the wisdom of Solomon.
Those are heavy shoes to fill. We're going to struggle through, try to balance the GMA with your goals and objectives for growth and development.
Mr. Chairman. Scott, I had the opportunity to spend some time with the sewer department on some other issues, and their comment, I asked that very similar one. And their comment is that'll be up to the developer to put the sewer in.
Mhm.
That's it. That's expense. It's back to us.
That is typical of development in that the developer, especially flat development, they're responsible to build the infrastructure, build the roads, and then dedicate them to the public. We don't build roads; we just accept them when they're dedicated to us. Where that CFP comes in, though, is you may have like those bigger parcels on the north side, 500-600 acres. If you build the pipe and you're going to connect it to the sewer interceptor, is that interceptor able to carry that capacity to the treatment plant? Does the treatment plant have sufficient capacity to process 2,000 new homes coming down that same pipe? So it's more than just the pipe in the ground at the point of development. Can the entire system handle that added capacity? And we do that in the capital facilities planning by creating those levels of service. You must have this amount of service per 1,000 residents or something like that. If that can't be met by a development, by GMA, we have to shrink the development to fit the LOS unless the Board of County Commissioners decides to change that level of service. But that's that's the choice that you have to make. It prevents something from going in that will overwhelm the utility infrastructure.
Does that answer your question? Thank you, Scott. We have elapsed 75 minutes. Without objection, the chair will recommend a 5-minute recess. Without exception, so ordered. Let's try to wrap this up and get restarted here.
So.
Scott, are you ready? Rona? You ready? Scott? You let me know. Okay, we were back in session. Thank you, everyone. Now we will be hearing from the public on the UGA and the matter before us, about the environmental impact statement, growth alternative to discussion. We have a number of yellow slips here, which I'm happy to see. Thank you very much for your participation. It's very meaningful. I believe in the order that they were received. That's kind of the way our clerk does it. Thank you, Rona, for doing that. Thanks for a good job as well. So the first person, and the rules are 3-minute presentations. We have quite a few, at least 11 or 12 here. So the first person will be Nicolay. Nicolay? I'm sorry. Is there a first? That's the first name? Please come forward, 3 minutes. Happy to have you here. Name? Is the microphone on?
Okay. Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm here representing myself and mutual real estate investments. And for some reason, our property located in Southeast Flats,
Yes.
it's right in the middle of development properties, and it's meet all 5 criteria that requested, and it's been exclusive. Okay. For some reason, it's not included in UGA improvement area. So can you please give us a chance to, sorry, Carol. I'll just read you some mail. Our property is located in center of other properties already under consideration. And we're not sure why is it exceeding during the evaluation process, especially since they meet all first 5 criteria. So can you just give me the answer, somebody? Why is it possible? Why does it happen?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Yes.
If the applicant could give us the property information, we will look that up and provide a response to them in the next 24 hours or so.
Have you presented anything formally to?
Yeah, I just I put parcel numbers in the yellow slip.
I think we have this.
We'll
on
take a
here.
look at it
Mhm.
and respond as quickly as we can.
Looks like there's 3 parcel numbers on here,
Yes, 3 parcel
So,
numbers,
part of the record.
and
thank
it's
you.
been excluded from
Yeah.
UGA.
Is there something you want to do with the property?
Yeah, our plan is development, and we want to put like HOA community, gated community, make little bigger properties, because a lot of builders doing small properties like right now, and it's just our plan, put some bigger properties, bigger, nicer houses for different group of people.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for my English, especially since
We
have
understood you
English,
perfectly. Thank you.
English teachers here.
Thank you for being here. Next, any comments for that gentleman? Next, I'd like to hear from Eric Lowe, please.
Good morning.
Good
I'm here-
morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm here today to formally ask the Planning Commission to direct Spokane County Building and Planning to include my family's property in further study for EIS Growth Alternative 2. Located in the Latah Valley of Spokane, the property is 166 acres. Approximately 17 acres are located within the city of Spokane, with the remainder zoned urban reserve in Spokane County. When I spoke to you at your last meeting, I explained that my family had owned this property for over 6 decades, that we had seen the explosive suburban growth in Latah Valley over the last 30 years, and that we wish to develop the property in partnership with the city and county to ensure that it meets the needs of Spokane residents for generations to come. We have dubbed the proposed development Cougar Cliffs. To say that I was surprised at Cougar Cliffs' exclusion from the Growth Alternative 2 discussion is an understatement. As illustrated in the email that I sent to Mr. Chesney on Tuesday and provided to you in hard copy, Cougar Cliffs meets all requirements set forth for study in Growth Alternative 2 from the memorandum dated September 24th. Our property is adjacent to the city of Spokane, approximately 30 meters away from existing sewer lines, with neighboring development planned to bring sewer to our property line. I've provided a sewer map attached to my comments that will show what they're planning on doing. It's 166 acres adjacent to US 195 and White Road, as well as 50 meters from Hatch Road. It's currently zoned urban reserve within the area that will be studied under the in-development Latah Valley sub-area plan, and is confirmed to have development interest with our initial letter submitted in March of 2023. I've provided each of you an informational booklet for the proposed mixed-use neighborhood development. The informational booklet contains a draft unit count by use, land use bubble diagram, and example building typologies for the planned development. Our goal is to accommodate all income bands. According to the inclusion map posted to the Spokane County website yesterday, the reason why our assemblage was excluded from consideration was because of sewer proximity. To my knowledge, no survey was conducted by the county to confirm sewer proximity to the property. But even if sewer was greater than 30 meters away, worst case scenario, we're looking at the length of 6 parking spots instead of 5. There are multiple assemblages presented in the inclusion map that are much further from existing sewer lines than we are, including the 5 Mile and Otis Orchard parcels that you reviewed earlier today. I hope this body rectifies the oversight by directing the Building and Planning Department to include Cougar Cliffs in the EIS Growth Alternative 2 study, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have regarding Cougar Cliffs, including how it meets the requirements set forth for study in Growth Alternative 2. Thank you.
You've researched this because that was exactly 3 minutes.
I'm used to doing public speaking, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Scott.
Let me jump in real quickly. As I said, that the mapping exercise was done on a very broad basis. We've spoken before. The project that's being proposed here is very much consistent with the goals we're putting before you for neighborhood planning. It meets virtually all of those criteria. And I would expect as we refine that map, this will find itself back in that eligibility category pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the commission? If not, we'll move on to Toya Fitzgerald. Thanks for the pronunciation, by the way. That's pretty nice. I like to speak correct.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. I handed you guys a paper, and it has a picture on the back with our property, and a map. So hopefully you know where that is. Good morning, Planning Commission members. My name is Toya Fitzgerald, and I'm representing W&M LLC. I may go over a little bit. I flew here from Southern California, so please just allow me a little grace and leeway. The LLC includes myself and my brother Kenton Leonard, who's a farmer in Garfield County. He's there seeding right now, which is why he can't be here. It also represents 4 generations of family connections to Spokane. I've traveled all the way here from Irvine, California, so there you have that. This year marks 75 years ago that my grandfather bought our piece of property. It was 1 square mile, 640 acres out on North Indian Trail, located north of and adjacent to the city of Spokane, south of Rudder Parkway, and west of North Indian Trail Road. So you can look at the map there, it has a little green arrow. I truly appreciate the opportunity to provide comment and testimony today since we submitted our letter of interest on April 5th, 2024 to the planning director, asking that our property be added to the urban growth area or UGA as part of the county's 2026 update. In our letter, we explained why the property is ideally suited to be included in the UGA. Our site meets almost all of the criteria Mr. Chesney mentioned. It is certainly of more than sufficient size to be utilized for all kinds of things, specifically blended development, recreational use, such as a world-class golf course, perhaps, a resort, open space, different levels of housing, schools, and possibly a mixed-use development for residential and commercial uses, maybe similar to Kendall Yards or Meadworks. We definitely want to partner with the county and city without compromising quality of life for the current neighborhood. And we already have bus, retail, medical services right there, as well as an elementary school. And please take special note, our property is almost devoid of rock, which is all over Spokane, and very few trees since my grandfather cleared the land himself. It's pure rolling hills with beautiful views, I might add, making it very affordable to work with and develop. Also note that we have a gigantic aquifer underneath our property where the Rathdrum Prairie and Little Spokane aquifers meet, so there's no lack of water. Please allow me just to end with a little bit of personal and family background and a few vital points. I grew up in Eastern Washington, graduated from Meade High School, worked at Zips in the Crescent, if you guys remember the Crescent, and have continued to stay here on our land with my parents and my husband and sons off and on for the past 39 years. This is still home for me, and I care deeply about this county and city. As previously mentioned, my grandfather who bought this land was a farmer in Garfield County, but having attended Eastern, Spokane held a soft spot in his heart, and he saw a lot of potential in this property for his family. Visiting since a small child and then eventually living here, I have watched with my own eyes a city grow right up to our doorstep. Our family has been trying to get included into the UGA for years. Mainly, I'm here to provide testimony on Spokane County's 2026 update I won't go as long as the first guy who spoke for 17 minutes, by the way. So I just have 2 more minutes. Must be right-sized, and that review of amendments to the UGA are subject to specific criteria. Of concern is the first alternative's reliance on infill strategies within the existing UGA. This policy would prevent Spokane County from expanding the UGA to accommodate the anticipated growth and population allocation specified in the county's land quantity analysis. Precluding expansion of the existing UGA will result in reliance on densities within cities that have yet to be achieved and will prevent the county from expanding its tax base and forestall economic growth, as well as limiting the ability for the county to provide for affordable housing. We understand that cities typically are the purveyor of urban services, but this does not preclude a county from having its own designated urban growth area. As such, we support the alternative that would amend the UGA and after analysis, hope that you will agree that our property is consistent with the criteria specified in that WAC that was previously mentioned. First, our property is next to the UGA and the whole property can be aggregated into one parcel. Second, it's right next to the city of Spokane to the south with sewer and water right there. Third, it's well in excess of the 10-acre minimum size. Fourth, it abuts North Indian Trail Road, which is designated as Rural Major Collector Arterial, and Rudder Parkway is designated as a Rural Minor Collector Arterial, because I know there's traffic issues, but they can be solved. Fifth, our entire property is designated urban reserve by the comprehensive plan and zoned urban reserved under the Spokane County zoning code. Sixth, I believe it could be as part of the study area, and we definitely have submitted our letter of interest. We know of no other parcel in unincorporated Spokane County that is adjacent to the urban growth areas which has the attributes I've described and the potential for a truly unique opportunity. Thank you so much for your consideration, and we look forward to further public participation in the update process.
Thank you. Questions?
I just want to clarify that our first speaker was like a workshop with STA, and their consultant, not a public comment. That's all.
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize that. Thanks.
Thank you, Logan. Thank you. Next, Brian Ellsworth, please.
A way to display this, or used to have an overhead, but that's a while ago. Any way to display this up here?
I'm with you. Old school technology has always been the best of this projection things.
Yeah, I'll hold it up.
When I first started here at this, they had those. John
Yeah.
Peterson had it, but now
Right.
we're very high tech. To the
But there is no
exclusion
way to
of us.
display it, right? Okay.
Okay, do your best. Thank you. We won't start your time to your, okay, go ahead.
My name is Brian Ellsworth, and I'm going to defer some of my comments to Scott Aitchison, who we share a border and a property with. Regarding the map, the initial map that was put out with this color coded and the criteria that was were specified for inclusion or appeal. We have a property up on the South Hill that's 21st and Glen Rose. It consists of about 12 parcels, 83 acres between my neighbor and myself. We border UGA. We're zoned urban reserve. We've improved the property over 20 years. We've lived and breathed the UGA for 20 years because we're somewhat hamstrung in what we can do with our property. Some of the criteria that would have been looked at in looking at individual parcels don't take into account what we've done in improving the property. 8-inch high pressure water lines into the center of the property. We're served by 3 water districts. My home is served by Spokane, or City of Spokane. We got East Spokane Water District and District 3. We have neighborhoods, roads that dead end on our property. And it's a total of 83 acres that border the UGA currently. We're about 150 feet from sewer, but on one side of the property, it's on the property line. So I understand that the map is preliminary. And how do we go about, first question would be probably for Scott, how do we go about making sure that all of the attributes of our property are being considered when they develop a future map? So I guess that question would be for Scott.
Mr. Chairman, if we don't already have them, the simplest would be put any information that you think is relevant into an email to us or to me, and we will add that to our files for the next go round.
Okay, we had hired a land use planner, Dwight Hume, and I know it was in our initial letters that we submitted, but
we'll take a look at it then.
Okay, I mean, we're 2 and 3 levels down in the color coding for consideration, and we thought it was kind of a no-brainer after 20 years of waiting in urban reserve. The next question I would have then is, if we're not included in the expansion of the UGA for whatever reason, increased density within the city, whatever that may be, what will be done with our designation? Urban reserve forces us to keep 80% of the property vacant. So what is done with our current designation? Are we go along on urban reserve for another 20 years? And I'll conclude with that.
You get bonus time because Mr. Chesney used some of your time up. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to weigh in on that for a moment, because what's being pointed out is the Growth Management Act over time has gotten more and more complex, and it's now got many inconsistencies and contradictions riddled through it. And the urban reserve zone is a very good example of that. It made perfect sense in 1990 and 2000 to create a zone that was providing for larger parcels that would be developed in the future, 20 and 30 year period, and not carved up into 2 and 5 acre parcels, which are hard to reassemble for urban development. now that the legislature has moved the goalposts, so to speak, on densities and intensities, there's a very good question is what's the purpose of urban reserve if the whole GMA is going to force development to go into the existing urban growth boundary? It's a gross inconsistency going forward, and we don't have the power to change that. But he pointed out a very important problem with GMA is if there's no point in reserving land for growth, then why does it have that designation?
My argument.
Mr. Chairman,
And
Yes, go ahead.
I was on the board of the planning commission when the first urban came through. And we were always concerned about, again, you're in a spot where you have city, county joint planning needs to take place. And there's also some major watersheds coming down through that area. And no one wanted to take that responsibility in the beginning 20 years ago, what to do, because we needed to see what's going to happen in Spokane County. And that's why you're in an urban reserve, so that you can move forward at this time. And you have a complex, as Scott has mentioned, it's some real challenges right there because of the terrain and the drainage, and it is a joint planning. So we did our best what we could do then.
Thanks very much for the time. Any other questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you very much. Scott Attison, please.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Scott Aitchison.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Oh, all right. I just got to get real close. Cool. I'm relatively new to Spokane. I moved out of California in 2009 and over to the west side, and now I'm over here. And I own 35 acres at the corner of Argonne and Bigelow Gulch next to Brian's 30 acres, and we have another couple of neighbors that have 30-acre pieces. My land is wedged in between the new Nom Nom gas station that's in the urban growth area and the neighborhood at the top of the hill. So we've got all this land that's in between, stuck in various zonings and whatnot. But in watching the meeting, and it's the first time I've attended a meeting like this, there's bigger issues here. The issue are people's hands are tied and quite frankly, it just seems overregulated. And I don't know that you're going to fix that problem with trying to regulate more. Untie the area. Let people build in what the market demands and enable to them. The Nom Nom doesn't have access to the sewer system that's in the neighborhood. I own all the land in between, and since we're not in their UGA, I can't put my nursery onto the sewer system. So it just, all of these rules kind of prevent the development of the area. Was talking to Scott a couple of times and say, hey, between 3 or 4 landowners here, you've got Bigelow Gulch and Argonne, and both have been widened out, big, beautiful broadways to go through. And we've got 100 acres of land wedged in between two urban growth boundaries, and we can't do anything with it under the current zoning. And I left California because of political environmental issues, and I'm about to do the same with Washington, quite frankly, and say, hey, you guys figure it out. There's a reason that Kootenai County is killing us in development. They're not as regulated. It's more friendly. So ultimately, that's my comment is if you can untie it, let people develop and do the market will find the highest and best use for land, and it will develop beautifully. Whereas you try and keep shoehorning it in, and our problem of more expensive and not available is going to just get worse.
I agree with you. I think we are too regulated. Our hands are too tied. Thing is, it goes back to the state. What do we have to do as a county to, disagree with the state and maybe take a few matters of those things into our own hands and do some of that stuff? I agree with you. I feel we are too regulated, and those are things that we need to work on and figure out a solution to get around it.
Yeah.
If we're talking about growth in our county and we're trying to get extra land to try to incorporate things, truly believe that we need to start looking at some of those new freeways going through there. They're great. I live 5 minutes down the hill, right up down on the prairie. I love it. I can get to the valley in 10 minutes. I can get to the north side in 10 minutes. We need to be able to build a little bit more and not be so regulated. I agree with you. We're trying to figure things out, trying to do the best for our GMA. And yeah, I'm for growth. I'm for building our county. I do believe that we have the best county in the state. I do not like being compared to Pierce County. I don't like being compared to King County. I don't like it at all. I feel we should run our county how we see fit and how we should do it best.
Yeah. Like his slides earlier on, if you get rid of a height requirement or get rid of a minimum size or just get rid of that stuff. Rezone it, say, hey, if you want to build a condominium, great. If that's where people want to live, or if you want to build a grocery store or a mini market so that it can service a mini store, what does the area need? That's what developers do. They put in what the area needs and wants and what the market is, and they build it better than the one down the street so that people will come to them. But when, as a developer, look at something and go, oh, well, you only get 1 unit per 10 acres, or I can only split it into 2 20-acre pieces or whatever. I just passed on 130 acres out in the plains because of water issues. And I said, hey, there's other places that I can go and work as a developer that's easier. And it's just fact.
Well, we got a lot of great developers. We got a lot of great developers in this county.
Sure.
You know, some of them are sitting right up here.
Yeah.
Some of them were sitting out there. Some of them already left.
Untie their
And
hands.
and no, I mean, we need our county to grow in the right way. You know, there's things going back and looking through some of this stuff on what we're doing with our streets and everything. I don't know if anybody out there, it sometimes drives me nuts when I'm pulling out onto a city street or something, and we've got trees that are growing up through the sidewalks, and you can't pull out and see the traffic coming. There's all sorts of different things that what we need to do better as a county or as a city to build better. And we need to come to the table with better ideas.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, while I tend to agree with the general sentiment, I don't support flouting state law. I think that last time we found ourselves in violation of state law, we got sued, and it cost us a lot of time and money. And I want to be on record as not supporting doing anything like that.
And I want to be on record that we do follow our laws, and I'm not saying doing anything illegal, but we need to look at changing a lot of our laws that we have.
Well, Mr. Chesney, would you like to weigh in as our planning director?
Not particularly.
You're the only paid guy up here, so.
That notwithstanding, we recognize all of these frustrations. You know, my background in planning started in consulting, and it was helping fix broken cities, as we called it, in urban redevelopment, trying to bring that energy back into places that had lost it. So what we're doing with county planning department is trying to rebuild it from a regulatory agency into a growth agency. As you know, Logan noted, and Lonnie too, we have to operate under the Growth Management Act. And at the moment, it's very clear that the votes in the legislature to maintain the GMA and tighten the GMA are more, there's more votes than there is to change it and let it open up. So we don't have any flexibility other than, as we said kind of early on in this, and Scott mentioned it too, if we can change the parameters that we control, lot sizes, development dimensions, and things like that, we can provide some part of a path to a more broadly based development. But what we can't do on our own is say, we're just going to add 1,000 acres to the UGA and hope for the best. where the GMA, unfortunately, the GMA is built to prohibit that. It is built to be a market constraint. It is manifestly unfair that way, but the public policy at the time was, we want to build compact urban cities. And to do that, we have to build a wall around outside of which you cannot have urban densities. And that may be true in Pierce County and King County, and desirable in some of those areas. As we and our predecessors have seen for years, that there's no flexibility to really adequately deal with the different economies of counties on the east side of the Cascades versus the west side of the Cascades. We're not the same economy. We're not the same philosophies and other things, but yet we operate under the same statewide umbrellas under the guise that as long as it's equal for everyone, it's fair. Well, that doesn't make it equitable. It puts constraints on Spokane County. We are unique. We mentioned that we're the only essentially metropolitan county east of the Cascades. And so we have downtown urban issues, we have edge issues. We have Kootenai County. Again, no other border county has development pressures that are so different from a state line or from one side of a county border to another county border. So we have enormous constraints on what we're doing. Within that, we're trying to provide a path through that forest to stimulate more kinds of development. And that's a lot where this is. But we're also reflecting that at the end of the day, the pattern of development here still wants some version of single-family detached housing with a fence and a yard and a place for your kids to play at 4.5 units an acre. If we cut that off, people will quit coming here, and Spokane County will economically die over a generation. We have to provide a full range of market responsive development so that this place can continue to evolve and grow. So we're sympathetic probably with almost everybody in the room, but we also recognize that we've got these constraints. And if we can find ways of maximizing our flexibility within the constraints, we can stay in conformance. If we are out of conformance or out of compliance with the Growth Management Act, that has financial implications for the county that can be severe. Part of it is you're no longer eligible to apply for many state grants for water and stormwater, for example. Others, if you're out of compliance to a significant degree, the governor can withhold gas tax revenue from the county, and that would be fatal. And so being out of compliance is not a slap on the wrist. It has serious consequences. Spokane County was out of compliance for 20 years, from 2005 essentially until March of this year. We worked for 4 years to get back into compliance. We're also going to push that envelope as best we can to provide a chance for development. But along with Logan, the risks of jumping too far are significant. They're significant, and we won't make that recommendation to you in any case. We will make a recommendation that it can be as aggressive as we possibly can under the RCWs.
Thank you.
And I agree with that, but we also need to get back to where for all sorts of everybody's incomes on how we make things more affordable to build.
Sure, and to tie onto that for a second, and then I know we're using up time. In the Washington State Association of Counties is our, legislators, our kind of representative group. Over the last few years, a number of regional and county planning directors have started gathering a couple times a year to talk about GMA changes, other changes that we need to create a more aggressive legislative program, because the counties have not done that for growth using the planning directors. The county commissioners and others have gotten together for years and talk about their own legislative issues, but now the planning directors are recognizing, and it was enlightening to me that 20 or more planning directors see the same constraints with the Growth Management Act that we see in Spokane County. So we have colleagues out there that are starting to get together and say, how can we start to put something in front of the legislature that has support from more than Spokane County? And we're building that. So I would expect in 26, 27, we will have legislative initiatives that could provide some additional flexibility. So it's.
Is there no organization currently like Washington State Planning Directors Group or something like that? Or is that something that's forming or?
There's actually, there's kind of an informal group that meets every year the week of Labor Day. It's called the State Planning Directors Group, which is actually more unique than you might think. Very few states do that. That is both city and county planning directors. Being there as a city planning director, I thought it was a terrific way of having, directors all being able to talk among each other. The counties didn't really have much of a seat at that table. And so while we're participating as counties, we're also using WASAC, or the County Association, to create a subgroup called County and Regional Planning Directors. So we've got a chance for those of us in focus on county governments, and then we also have a chance to focus on county and cities cooperatively. And the county one has really just come together in the last few years.
Thank you. Next up is Julia McHugh. Julia, welcome back. You were here last time.
Yes, sir, I was. Before you start the timer,
I haven't started.
you have a packet from me. It has a table. 3 pages. On the back is a table of the West Plains, ongoing impacts to the aquifer system, and the regional economic contributions. I am here as a West Plains resident and property owner. Also, there are 4 different pages of, excuse me. 4 pages of written submitted questions to the planning department, to which I have received not a single response. No, thank you. But thank you. So I want you to have those notes as background, read them at your leisure, or commensurate with your concern about the West Plains. If you study this, I'm sorry, miniaturized table, you will see that the West Plains has significant impacts and significant concerns.
I still haven't started the timer yet.
All right, so here we go.
Okay.
I'm Julia McHugh, Palisades Neighborhood, West Plains.
Welcome.
I am a property owner out there. I have been there for over 25 years, or just on 25 years. I have now attended 6 of these comp plan meetings, 2 of which have been termed placemaking, which were strictly about housing. 3 have been called environmental impact analysis, none of which it can be construed as environmental impact analyses. None, including today. There's nothing about environment. I fully understand the need for housing. That is a given, but is housing only. And part of this presentation in 2 ways has been extremely disingenuous. One is that there has been no mention, well, barely a mention, but no detail about reuse, repurposing of the hundreds of thousands of square feet of vacant commercial and industrial property that exist within the cities of Spokane Valley, City of Spokane, and Spokane County. That is where you're really missing an opportunity, because those facilities, those properties have infrastructure, have transportation by and large, have water supplied, have sewer supplied. The infrastructure is there. So you're not contributing to urban sprawl. So 6 of these presentations, and none of them have been an environmental analysis. The other way that this is disingenuous is because of Mr. Chesney's maps. He showed Airway Heights, Northwest Spokane, the West Plains, Cheney, Medical Lake. None of them showed commercial property that would be available. There are hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial and residential vacant property that could be easily, expensively, just like everything is expensive, converted with existing infrastructure. I've sent the planning director and department a whole YouTube video on the repurpose of a mall. You think about the Spokane Valley Mall, the Sears building. It's been vacant for years now. The Northtown Mall, yes, city boundaries, but within the county and within realistic notions of redevelopment and housing. There's no question about the need for housing. We've got all the homeless from Camp Hope up in Indian Canyon. They're all there. Come and visit them. So you're not really seeing the full picture. In fact, you're seeing a very thin slice of the full picture. And here you're hearing the other side of the coin, whether it pleases you or not. So, Mr. Commissioner Rayner was kind enough to phone me after last week. We tried to figure out who was the planning commissioner representing the West Plains. It is Mr. Rayner. He kindly phoned me and he asked me to summarize in 100 words what I wanted out of this comp plan process, because it's clear that I'm a dedicated citizen and a resident, and this is what I gave him. Actually, I'm giving it to you now, Mr. Rayner. Here it is. It's this dark box on page 3 of your house. I want to see a serious and significant course correction. I want to see the horse before the cart. Begin with an updated existing environmental conditions that are identified, along with delineation of susceptible landscapes to be avoided. Then identify opportunities for development. I'd also like to see a statement from each of the commissioners on your purpose of your position, including code of citizen representation and statement of decision-making process and priorities identified. Because at this point, the county is 2+ years into this planning process. I have repeatedly asked the county planning department to show their work. No response, no historic work. And some of this work and these criteria have been developed on out-of-date documents, including the critical areas ordinance from 2018, which we knew, our county commissioner Al French knew in 2017 as a member of the airport board, that we had PFAS, serious PFAS on the West Plains. We still have serious PFAS on the West Plains, but he allowed this critical areas ordinance to go forward. There's no mention of the West Plains aquifer. There's no mention of the paleo channels. There's no mention of PFAS. So what kind of a document does that give you in your planning efforts? It gives you nothing but pure ignorance. I'm very sorry. And Mr. Chesney says this is under development, but since February, it is very clear that the arrow is aimed at housing and housing only. And by the way, the more rental housing you create, the more rental ghettos you create. People that rent houses have no control over the rent that they pay, unless it's written in their lease. So you are at a danger of creating a rental community that surrounds single-family homes that don't want rentals in their backyards. That's why they live where they live. So you do definitely have the cart ahead of the horse. I want you to really seriously show your work in considering and repurposing commercial and industrial properties. Also, I've requested of the consultants, there were supposed to be critical areas identified, maps released. None of that has ever been received. That was back in June. And then the idea of vacant property. Okay, I want you to
Ms. McHugh, we're almost double the time allotted, but I mean, but I do respect your commentary. Are we close to the end?
Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you.
Please rethink vacant. I've spoken to Mr. Rayner about this. The term vacant requires a much more in-depth evaluation. These lands provide irreplaceable environmental services. They infiltrate stormwater, they clean air. We didn't mention climate today, but the open space is a carbon storage system. There's just so much that's being missed here. So please read the packet I've given you. Please consider that the West Plains is a unique situation, and that the maps that were provided, they were tiled. The West Plains is 130 square miles. It includes parts of the city of Spokane from the Spokane River. The PFAS that comes from the West Plains ends up in the Spokane River. The city is identified property along Government Way, but that's the West Plains. Airway Heights, Medical Lake, Cheney, 4 Lakes, two airports, Fairchild, 2 massively contaminated sites. So broaden the information, and thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. McHugh. Any questions for Ms. McHugh? Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Saval, please. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hello, Commission. I am Suzanne Saval.
To the mic a little closer, please.
My name is Suzanne
Oh,
Saval,
very good. Thank you.
and I own property at 6412 North Jensen Road, which is just west of one of the properties that has been spoken about, which is the Argonne and Bigelow Gulch area. So I'm just west of that, my property is. I appreciate the work that's gone into assessing the 2026 comprehensive plan, and that my plat, along with several adjacent plans, have been submitted for consideration as an urban growth parcel. My plot meets 3 of the 5 considered mandatory criteria. It is approximately 30 meters from the existing sewer line. It is 0.5 miles to the arterial Bigelow Gulch. And so I'm glad that I'm being considered for that. For your reference, I have documentation in my file regarding Pasadena Park stating that the water system for my plat has been installed, tested, and accepted. I have a copy of a survey with the auditors and surveyors signed certificates. On May 9th, 2024, I requested that my property be changed to urban growth area, and I included area information from an engineer from the Public Works regarding access to the sewer system. On May 10th, I provided a letter given to my neighbors on Jensen Road explaining my request to rezone, and with signed support of 4 of the 6 people that live on the road, and the other 2 hadn't made a decision yet. So it's being encouraged by everybody that lives on Jensen. Also, in the past, a bond just recently passed for a new school for Orchard Prairie School District, which will provide more children in the area to go to their local school. Many of the kids have to go to different schools, West Valley and in District 81, because it doesn't have enough room for additional kids. That has been changed. My intent, actually, my request is for consideration of the board to simply approve that the 5 acres that I've owned for 40 years to be granted to be divided into 2 2.5 acre plots. Several requests I have found have been previously approved for property adjacent to mine. I have referenced the 2 parcel numbers. So in previous years, 5 acre plots have been divided into 2.5 acre plots. My intent is to sell the 2.5 acres of my plat so that I can purchase a new home, leaving the rest of my acreage as an investment when this area is rezoned in 2026. I've paid taxes for 40 years, had a survey completed with the intent of eventually selling my property. Okay, at this point, I just would like to say thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to the January 15th, 2026 meeting in which the impact of my comments will be evaluated.
Thank you, Ms. Saval. And just as a matter of record, you've submitted this all in writing, almost every single thing you said, which is now part of the permanent record.
Yes.
So
Okay,
thank you
great.
very much
Yes, thank
for
you.
being here and for submitting this.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Question?
I also submitted a map, but I know you have access to all of that to see where my property is.
Great.
So thank you for your work, and I look forward to a
Thanks for coming down. Questions?
positive. Any questions for the board?
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Robbie Johnson, please. I think that's right. Robbie A. Johnston. Oh, that's the person from Tipping Point. That was the person who was here earlier than spoke, but is not here to, okay, well, I think they've said, they had their comments. Sean Elston, please. Sean, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Sean Elston, and I want to thank you for the time to speak before you. I just want to keep this brief because I know this meeting has gone on for a while. Our property, which is on top of 5 Mile, which was pointed out by Mr. Chesney during the map part of it, is green, which is wonderful news. As far as the criteria goes for the UGA inclusion, we meet the majority of what is on there. It's currently urban reserve. My property is 40 acres. My sister's adjacent property is 40 acres, and adjacent to that is another co-owned parcel, 10 acres, for a total of 90 acres on top of 5 Mile. Because of the development to the west and the settlement, we will be immediately adjacent to the existing UGA, and we have utilities in the immediate area. Water line goes right down the property line, and Hawthorne Road dead ends into our properties. So I know that this has been a difficult process and is complex, but I want to thank Mr. Chesney and his whole team for their efforts here. And I would like to ask for your support in continuing with what has been green lighted on the map. And thank you very much for your time. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. Elston? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Jeffrey A. Daniels, please.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Jeff Daniels, as you just said, and I'm here representing a coalition of landowners on the east side of North Argonne Road, directly across from the Northwood community and Columbia Drive. And I can tell by the participation today that the community is well represented here. And we are also asking that we be included in the EIS study. And we submitted a proposal last month, and I see now that it is included in the study map. So I appreciate that. We look forward to working with the Planning Commission staff. So thank you very much for that. We believe that's a balanced proposal. It provides needed housing, protects the environment, improves safety, and respects rural boundaries. And we definitely support responsible growth as well. All of our families that are in this neighborhood are either lifetime residents or have been here for well over 20 years. So we appreciate your consideration. And it sounds like this neighborhood's well represented here today also. So period, stop, new comment. Not representing my neighbors, just myself and my wife. I have a question for the board and Mr. Chesney. In Mr. Chesney's presentation, he showed the results of the housing needs study. And it's obvious that there's a large demand, well over 6,000 homes shown as needed in the under 30% median income bracket. And the question has been asked today by some of the board members, but my question for you all is, who is responsible? Who is the belly button that is responsible for developing plans that address those needs?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Happy to jump in.
Please.
The numbers themselves are generated through a tool created by the Department of Commerce. And so it's not an analysis that's done locally, but this comprehensive plan will have to accommodate both a regulatory system that does not prohibit housing in those bands, but now, according to the Mercer Island decision, has to have an implementation portion that shows they can be built and can be constructed for that income band in some parts of Spokane County. So the comprehensive plan itself is the tool that will be the driving factor in moving this forward.
So the comprehensive plan enables that, but is there anyone in the county that's responsible for developing the actual development plans to meet those needs?
That's the challenge in the Mercer Island decision. The previous understanding from Commerce and the legislature was no, that the governmental role was to provide the regulatory system that would allow the market to respond and build those things. The Mercer Island decision is seeming to suggest that the government has to, in fact, implement it or have a mechanism to implement it itself. And so that would be a significant change in that perspective. And that's why we're waiting to see what comes out of that appeal.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Thank you so much. Lee Trevino, please.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Lee Trevino. Forgive me, I don't do a lot of public speaking. Born and raised here in Spokane, up on 5 Mile, and my brother and I both own adjacent parcels that are under consideration. I'm here just to ask for your support in adjusting the urban growth boundary to include our parcel up there. I live up there myself, and I would really like to see this happen. We're currently farming a farm that's been in our family for generations. Our father farmed it before us, but we cannot farm it anymore due to the development up there. On one side, we have very dense development. The other side, Meade Public Schools. And so we would like to see it used for development as well. And the capital facilities are in place. And we're committed finally to dedicating a portion of this, if we're allowed to develop it, into a park for the community there. I think that would receive really widespread support up on 5 Mile, especially because it would be very easy to connect it to the Little Spokane natural area and enhance that trail system that everybody up there would really like, including myself. So I'd like your support for including it into the UGA. And thank you very much for your time.
Has this been submitted formally? Oh, it has. Okay, great.
It has, but not the part about the park. That's just my personal thing. I want to name it after.
Well, it's my testimony now. It's official part of the record.
Go.
Questions from Mr. Trevino? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is my last yellow slip. 4 people online. Okay, we could do that too. Well, let's put her on. Bonnie Banker.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I just see a big blue bubble in front of me, so I guess that's a speaker. But anyway, this is my first time on Zoom. I'd be there in person, but I'm ill and don't want to contaminate all of you. But we are part of Cheney Co-Housing, and we have been working on this in conjunction with the city of Cheney and also with the county since 2019 and had gone through all of the processes to have our 10-acre parcel. It's 10 acres if you don't count if you don't count the easement that was put in for the road. And it's our understanding that if you go to the midline, it's 2 5-acre parcels and it would actually meet the 10-acre requirement. So we'd like to have it put back on the map as meeting the 5 first requirements. And in fact, we went through a process. We went through your planning commission, also the city of Cheney's planning commission. We're referred to the city council and got their support, and is for a land swap. That kind of got confused in I think in the lawsuit that Spokane County had resolved with FutureWise. So we were asked to wait for this process. So we do have a map now from Cheney, having gone through their process. In the middle of all of that, they lost their one planner. So that may be why Mr. Chesney said that Cheney has the capacity to fulfill its needed requirements without expanding. But that was always in the plan. We have the support of the landowner who owns most of the land that's going to be, I think, taken out. That's on the other side of the railroad track and in the wetlands and whatnot. So we feel like we meet all of the criteria, and we would like to see that put back on the map. And there's a map forthcoming from the city of Cheney that reflects their desire to have that 10 acres. There will be, I think, around 200 acres that are in question on the other side, but we're, Cheney, I believe, is only asking for the 10 acres that we are ready to go forward and develop. Should we be put in the urban growth boundary? And we also, I think we're mistakenly said we're not within the 30 meters of a sewer system, but I think we fall into that. It's clearly there in the street, so it's been overlooked. I will let Justin, I think, pick up anything that I haven't already talked to you about. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Next, please. Paul, all right. Paul there.
Yeah, Paul's mousing around. Paul Crop, Moran Prairie. Hi, Bonnie. I just want to give my profound appreciation for the map exercise itself. It's a great filter. It's obviously got some work on it in order to be more accurate. And that's my only comments are two. One is, I think the mapping exercise could be improved if it showed the actual existing UGA boundary. And that would be the big one. The other one is, it's not clear, and I think it should be more clear, about which parcels have been subject to a letter of an intent and which haven't. There are many parcels that have outlines, but some of them say letter of intent and some of them don't. So this is just on the technical side of things for those of us of the public who like to follow along and understand what's going on. Those are my two comments.
Thank you, Paul. Comments or Paul?
Mr. Chairman, both good comments, very constructive, and we will incorporate them in the next round.
Thank you. So noted. Next. Kevin?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go, Kevin.
Oh,
You're on.
here we go. Can you hear me now?
We can.
All right. Kevin Frybot, Senior Planner for the City of Spokane. I'll be real quick because I know we're going long. I want to echo Paul's comment. I am hugely appreciative of this map. As a data wonk and a cartographer, it's a salve to my soul to see all the detail that's in there. So I want to thank county staff, Graham, and the GIS folks for building a truly excellent tool. So we're really appreciative of that. And then we also, just a quick question. I'm curious if, and this might be for staff, if there's any mapping or display of areas that might be removed from the UGA as part of the alternative. And that's it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mr. Chairman, happy to address that. We have not produced a formal map of those de-designated areas, but the guiding principle is any of the remaining areas that are currently bounded by a UGA border that are not developed or not zoned for urban development. In other words, they're zoned rural traditional or some other rural classification. Those will all be de-designated. So we will produce another map that identifies those specifically, but we haven't done that because it's a pretty clear criteria. They will simply be de-designated because 35 years after the Growth Management Act, there's been no development pressure to change them into developable lands.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chad. Do we have one more?
Yes, hello.
We'll wait for Justin.
All right, can you hear me?
We can, Justin, go ahead.
All right, my name is Justin Mager. I'm from Cheney, Washington. Bonnie Mager already kind of spoke about our parcel.
Can you talk a little louder, Justin?
Yeah, sorry. I said my name's Justin Mager. I'm from Cheney, Washington. Bonnie Mager already spoke about our parcel just north of the Cheney UGA. I just wanted to reiterate a couple things. You know, there's 5 criteria. We are 30 meters from sewer. That wasn't acknowledged. And if you look at this center line of the right of way, we have the 10-acre requirement as well. So we meet all 5 of those requirements. And we're adjacent to the Cheney GPA. But I actually just have an extra question, which is if I wanted to submit a letter, who do I send that to?
Scott Chesney? Send it. Go ahead.
You can send that to my attention here at the county.
Okay, great. I will do so. I would have been there today, but my child is sick, so I'm at home, I'm afraid.
Do we have additional comments? Justin, did you have anything else to add?
Nope, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you for participating. We appreciate it. Is that it, Rona? Okay, great. Thank you for that. It worked perfectly. I like that. Okay. So, anyone else that we missed, even if they didn't fill out a yellow card, because I hate not to let people speak if they have something that relates to this matter.
While you're asking that, let me also add, especially if someone's listening or if they see the meeting on the recording later, comments can be sent to us at any time, and we welcome those. You can get to them through our webpage or was it planninghelp@SpokaneCounty.gov is our general email. We welcome those. We will take all of them, make sure we compile them, that you see them before your next meeting. So if someone thinks of something later, please jot it down and send it to us.
Thank you, Scott. Commissioners, we've heard some very robust and meaningful and purposeful testimony today in this workshop. Any comments or observations that you would like to enter for the record? Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, I just want to comment on environmental impact statements. While I appreciate Julie's comment that this is we're not doing an environmental impacts analysis to the degree she supports, my understanding of an environmental impact assessment and EIS is analyzing the impacts of changing the GMA and these 2 alternatives to do so. It isn't just like, let's go look at the county and do a full deep dive on everything environmental about the county. While that would be great, there's no funding source to do that, nor is there a charge to do that, at least as far as I understand it. So, we have to analyze these 2 scenarios and the things that could come in between them. And, that may need to include some of the things that Julie's talking about, but I think the sort of deep dive, let's look at every single environmental factor about our county that she's asking for is not our charge here. But do correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman.
Logan, that's essentially accurate. The EIS is designed to identify negative impacts on the environment from the development scenarios and tools to mitigate them if possible. That said, however, the other part of this is we are updating our critical areas ordinance, which is that broader look at the environmental or environmentally sensitive areas throughout the county. They're on a parallel path, so they haven't quite come together yet. But we will have more of that information on the CAO update as we go out to these next 4 community meetings later on here in October. But yes, technically the EIS is to understand negative impacts from the development scenarios and how to mitigate them or change them.
Thanks. And then can you tell me more about that? Am I forgetting that we already workshopped that critical areas ordinance? Or have we not had that before us yet?
No, it has not come before you yet. It's
Cool.
It's in a near early draft form, and that's what we're hoping to have summarized by the end of the month.
Sweet. Thank you.
I want to take a different slant on what Lonnie was sharing earlier about Spokane County versus the western part of the state. I think that Spokane County has been victimized by shalls and shoulds that were used by organizations like the Center for Justice to change what we've tried to pass here for our way of life in Spokane County. And I just want to put us on notice that we've got to be very careful and very strategic, or we're going to end, no matter what we do, we're going to end up like Mercer Island. I played chess in college, and I really learned to play chess in tax school. And when you deal with a 3,600 unit Internal Revenue Code, you learn how to play shells and shoulds. I think the planning laws are as complex as the IRS laws. And we've got to fight fire with fire if we want to have a county that we're proud of. And I just pass that on to, for whatever issue you've got, we've got to dot our I's and cross our T's and use shells and shoulds appropriately and get an outcome that we're proud of and is worth our effort.
I'm encouraged by the fact that through the county association that there are more planning directors getting to that same perspective, that we share common interests in needing some refinements of the Growth Management Act. So it's not Spokane County trying to go alone where we have no horsepower to make those changes, but collectively, if we have 30 or more of the counties that are suggesting at least some agreement on some incremental changes, that's a pretty substantial number of legislators. So having a partnership to address these things in a serious way of saying, here's how GMA needs to be improved to reflect our current times, our current conditions, and our current places, I think gives us a good shot at affecting some of that change.
Other comments?
I might just say one more thing, that someone said that rental housing basically was inherently bad. And I just want to, from the dais, say that it's not true. But first of all, our charge is to produce some housing that is clearly going to be rental housing. And the idea that it's a blanket bad thing is ridiculous. And I sit here to say that loudly.
More comments? Clyde?
No.
Pete? Anybody? Okay. Any people in the audience that want to just take one last, that hasn't spoken already? Now would be the time. I'm going to open it up. Okay. Thank you for being here. That concludes our workshop and our hearing from the public.
Thank you,
Scott?
commissioners. Thank you to the speakers that brought us information. Just to make sure they're aware, our meetings are recorded. We take notes, and we will know all of their comments, and that will go into directing our work.
The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of September 11th as supplied to you today, and then you pack it online. Hopefully you've read those. Are there any comments, additions? If none, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved.
So moved by Clyde.
Second.
Second by Pete. All those in favor of adopting these minutes of September 11th signify by saying aye. All opposed by saying nay. Those minutes are hereby adopted. Next meeting, October 16th and 30th. Tell me about the 16th again. Would you like
Yes.
to make that a little clear?
Yes, there was, excuse me, we mentioned earlier in the summer the idea of using or creating a subcommittee to discuss individual elements of the Growth Management Act or the chapters in our comprehensive plan. We saw enough nodding heads that we decided to use that system. And so this upcoming meeting will focus on the climate and resiliency element, which is also brand new. So it's something none of us have seen before. And so it will be less formal. We'll simply create a subcommittee, and it will be any of you who choose to show up. There's no formal membership or nomination to that. You don't have to appoint the subcommittee. But it'll be more of a roundtable discussion on that element. We'll have a pretty detailed presentation from Cascadia, our consultant that is working on that element. and it'll be a chance to talk about that in some detail. We are going to replicate that kind of through probably May, and we're going to try to use the second meeting of the month and talk about individual chapters or individual elements in this plan, and then we'll start to pull it all together in June of 26. So it's a way of having a less formal discussion, but we'll see how it goes, and if you choose to pursue that, we'll keep it moving. As we move forward, though, we'll also have our formal meetings that will have action items and other stuff going forward.
Thank you.
I have a couple comments. Do we have a sign-in chart? Do we need to sign? Over by the rolls. Okay, thank you. Number two is that, again, for a few of us that do not have Wayne's phone number and contact, I would sure request it because I know he's in a time of need, and I'm just trying to be respectful at this point when I ask that. That's it.
One last round of contribute. If you want to say anything before we call for adjournment, Logan, looks like you might have something on your mind.
Yeah, can we bring a card next time to our October 16th meeting and try to get it to Wayne? All good with that? I will bring one.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, just a reminder for everyone that we do have these 4 community meetings coming up starting October 15th and continuing the week after that. I believe the first one's at Center Place on the east side, and finishing up with the Sheriff's Training Center on the West Plains, I think the Thursday of the following week. The dates are listed on our webpage, 5:30 to 7 for each of the 4. They will be essentially the same meeting or the same information presented at 4 different places, which is different than the placemaking, which is more site specific. So if someone can attend, they don't need to feel they need to attend all 4, but if they can attend any one, we are grateful for that, and we will welcome their thoughts and opinions.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, let me just once again compliment Scott and his team for doing excellent work and really putting a lot of effort into this thing. And I mean, the work really shows, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The team, the long-range planning team is top-notch. They're doing great work. I'm very proud of them.
That's very obvious. Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Logan, second by Lonnie. Without exception, we stand adjourned.